Delvermere, Jones versus Davis. So, game 2 already underway, and Kevin showing off his prowess here. If you didn't watch us last year, Kevin showed us that his ability to play Grixis Mirrors is really quite strong.
And so Kevin does have Desolate Lighthouse in his sideboard, and the fact that he's brought it in here demonstrates his mastery of this mirror match. He knows it's all about making land drops. He knows he's going to have the mana to activate Desolate Lighthouse. It's no longer about Delver post sideboard.
Yeah, Kevin has 7 lands in play to Jim's 4, and that just seems so important at this point.
He has a Tasker activation on the table with mana up to still interact. Kevin's in a very good spot here.
Young Pyromancer for Kevin. Jim will, on end step, cast Snapcaster Mage.
There's a Spell Snare hanging out in Jim's graveyard.
So now we have Life Totals, and this adds some context here. Jim's going to go ahead and Snapcaster back a Spell Snare. Kevin down to 8. Jim's at 12.
This is actually a pretty big win on the stack there for Kevin. Jim both cast Snapcaster Mage, the best card in the matchup, and used a Spell Snare, which is a potential answer to a Snapcaster from Kevin on Young Pyromancer, which matters significantly less than Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, well, right, when Kevin has 7 lands, Snapcaster is among his best cards.
Mm-hmm. If Jim is able to terminate or murderous cutaway Tasker, that would be huge for him.
He's going to go for Painful Truths here. He has 4 cards in hand, wants to draw up to 7. It looks like his hand has multiple copies of Snapcasters and Kolaghan's Command. Mana seems to be the choke point for him.
That is a very awkward spell to be casting when you're this far behind on lands.
Yeah, so he goes to 9. Huge exile zone over there as well. Draws 2 more lands in Gitaxian Probe. So in theory, that does help solve the mana issue. But you look at these cards in hand, right? Snapcaster, Kolaghan's Command. It's just a lot of mana.
Mm-hmm. You know, he had to take the better part of this turn off to cast that. And he's already facing down Tasker, which is just the largest creature in the matchup.
Plays a fetch land. That's his 5th land. Yeah, his hand is Young Pyromancer and Gitaxian Probe. So maybe Pyromancer could do work for him?
Yep, Pyromancer would be able to produce a stream of chump blockers.
You see Jim just saying go. He still has the ability to flash a Snapcaster into play. Kevin goes down to 7 life on end step.
7 functionally very similar to 8. It's increments of 3 that you largely care about, with lightning bolts ending the game.
Yeah, especially these players, both of them sitting on at least 1 copy of Kolaghan's Command.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to Jim.
Something that's really interesting about playing the Delver Mirror is Delver is so bad post-sideboard that you board them out, but you generally want to leave your lightning bolts in, maybe even bring in some low-to-the-ground removal spells in case your opponent did leave Delver in. But if you have reason to believe that both players have boarded Delver out, it starts to make sense to trim on Lightning Bolt.
So Kevin's going to start by tapping 2 for Snapcaster Mage. Plays a land first. It's going to be Snapcaster on something for 1 black. It's going to be Murderous Cut.
And that allows him to get all the bad cards out of his graveyard. It's going to make his Tasker more powerful going forward here.
Cut on the Snapcaster. Then swings Tasker. Also just mana. It's all about
very
the cheapest
efficient
spell.
Yeah, still has a ton of lands untapped. Kolaghan's Command in hand.
And that's such a veteran play. Like, in that situation, you know, I would think he has Kolaghan's Command, right? I would want to use... It seems like Murderous Cut's my best kill spell. I wouldn't want to use that and fully delve it. But Kevin's just giving such a premium to his land.
If you can Kolaghan's Command to get Snapcaster Mage back in your hand, that's just your line.
End step. Jim's going to try to make another Snapcaster, but he taps out for it. Kevin's having none of it. He's going to use Kolaghan's Command to deal 2 to the Snapcaster and force Jim to discard. And this seems to be his plan, right, is to just keep Jim's board clean. No creatures, just nothing. Jim can't block, Jim can't win.
Yeah, and that Snapcaster for Jim was a very, very defensive play.
Well, he has another one in hand. Does that help it make more sense?
Not really. I understand why he did it. You know, he had mana untapped. The life totals are very low. He wants to get a blocker onto the battlefield. But that play just isn't going to win any games.
Go back over to Jim. He's got a lot of spells, but now he's down to 4. We see there's Young Pyromancer from Jim.
Okay, that's reasonable. He has the command as well. So he can take care of that Snapcaster Mage, get that Snapcaster Mage in his graveyard back in his hand, produce a token, chump block Tasigur for a turn.
Uses a blue mana to cast Cataxian Probe. It gives him a chump blocker. He'll get to look at Kevin's hand of Snapcaster Mage plus Dispel.
Knowing about Dispel certainly matters.
Snapcaster Mage, though, ooh, it's going to be hard. Yeah, there is a Kolaghan's Command in Kevin's graveyard. This is getting tricky.
Yeah, Snapcaster, Kolaghan's Command with Dispel backup on this following turn is very big for Kevin.
Jim's going to cast another Probe, get another Elemental, and draw. So he has enough chump blockers to survive the turn. And was his last draw a Tasigur? It was. And Jim spends 5 mana to make 4 creatures. That was way more than I thought he could do this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent sequence of events here for Jim. Now that Tasigur was a very fortuitous draw.
That was so good. He started the turn with just a Pyromancer, and I was thinking, how is Jim possibly going to make enough chump blockers? Or just blockers in general? And yeah, this is how.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to Kevin Jones.
And Kevin Jones, he does have 1 copy of Is It Staticaster in his sideboard. Both players do.
That'd be big.
Looks like he has not produced it.
No, Drew Steam Vents here. Man, that Tasigur is just... what a beating. Now, can Kevin try to burn Jim out, maybe? Get that Kolaghan's Command, Snapcaster that back. Are there enough other 2-damage burn spells that could work?
So it comes down to that question of how many lightning bolts Kevin has in his deck. There is a copy of Electrolyze, which supplements this plan as well.
Like, he can use this Kolaghan's Command, right? He can flash it back here. Jim's tapped out. And he can either shoot Young Pyromancer or he can shoot Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not clear which one he's supposed to be doing.
I like this attack with the Delver, or with the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, that's so good.
Because Jim can either take it and die to Kolaghan's Command.
So if Jim, yeah, go ahead.
Or Kevin puts Snapcaster Mage in his graveyard and gets to cast Kolaghan's Command.
That's really neat. So it looks like we changed it. He's going to use he's going to flashback the Kolaghan's Command with Snapcaster, and he goes the more conservative play. He'll kill Young Pyromancer and have Jim discard. Now, he has 1 more land left, and if he's willing to fetch with that fetch land and shock with the Steam Vents in his hand, he could activate Tasigur. But for Kevin, he says no. That's too much. He's at 7.
Yeah, that would be a very aggressive line.
Jim draws a copy of Painful Truths. Probably too aggressive.
I don't know if Kevin was concerned about Dispel, not just attacking with that Snapcaster Mage. I believe that he found the correct line and talked himself out of it.
He was singing the Snapcaster Mage. The idea is that if it died, then you just do nothing, say go, and activate Tasigur. And then say, like, hey, I'll get this. Now there's a Snapcaster in the yard for me.
Yeah, if it dies, you get to Snapcaster Kolaghan's Command and get it back in your hand. He has plenty of lands.
Oh, right, because it's just a free roll.
Yeah.
I think he decided that having Jim discard might be more important at the time.
Jim had 3 cards in hand, though. I don't know.
Jim's going to flashback Murderous Cut, though, with Snapcaster Mage. Note here, these matches for this round are not timed. You notice the timer moving, just counting up here. There, of course, is still a table judge watching the match.
Grudge matches demand a winner. You have to settle this grudge.
Murder's Cut on Tasigur. And Kevin has to dispel.
Yeah.
Can't actually let that guy die. Kevin still has that Polluted Delta. He's got it shoved over to the side.
His pickup here was Electrolyze.
Ooh, Jim's at 2. Yeah. You know what I'm... If we hadn't killed the Young Pyromancer, then we could go. This is why I'm bad at these matchups, is because I see them at 4 and I get really greedy.
Attacking with Tasigur here is actually huge because he can then use Electrolyze to clean up the Tasigur if that blocks. Something else chump blocks, fine, that's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious line is that Jim would try to double block with a 1/1 and his own Tasigur. I mean, rightfully he'd be skeptical about that.
Yeah, then Kevin just Electrolyzer Tasigur, Electrolyzer 1/1. Even both Tasigurs dying is kind of fine for Kevin.
What if Jim blocks with 2 elementals and a Tasigur? Then Kevin's kind of on the losing end of that, right?
Could even just Electrolyze both elementals. You know, you kind of check what he's going to do.
Maybe that trade's still good. Or we could just go upstairs. And it looks like Kevin is going to Electrolyze a Snapcaster and an elemental. The patience to not be shooting burn spells. Oh man, I couldn't do this, Ryan.
You put
I
yourself
just shoot them all upstairs.
You put yourself in a spot there where you just need to top deck a red spell though, and that's just not what this deck is up to. That's what burn does. The volume of red damage spells in this deck is just too low to make that
now,
play.
I do want to point out something. Look at Jim's graveyard. What do you know about the top 4 cards of it?
4 kind.
So, but that actually in this matchup, if they start going late, can Kevin play differently? Because that's the best card.
Well,
right?
Jim has Kolaghan's Command in his hand, and
so
that's
this is
going to
never
turn
stopping.
into 2 Snapcaster Mages in his hand.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, 1, and then he's going to cast it. It'll be on the battlefield, and then he'll
never
get
mind.
the other one back.
Ugh, they're never gonna.
Kolaghan's Command was such a significant upgrade to this strategy.
No, you're right. It's great. And then you can Tassiger back. Yeah, it says they're never ending. I get it. Jim says go as well. Kevin is going to activate his Tassiger. This is both players going back to the card advantage grind. It's so interesting because the life totals are so low.
Mm-hmm. You could find yourself tap low and then just suddenly dead on the stack.
Yeah, one player could just easily end up with 4 points of burn.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin's going to activate his Tassiger. He gets Collective Brutality into the yard.
That's a burn spell.
You can't give him... Right. You can't give him that. There's Electrolyze, Brutality, and Dispel, right? Okay, Jim's at 4, and 2 of these are 2-point burn spells. Yeah, so he gives Kevin the Dispel.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't be surprised to see Jim just cast this Kolaghan's Command now that Kevin is tapped out of Dispel mana.
Yeah, he did just have to give Kevin a Dispel, so if he wants to Kolaghan's Command, he really ought to do it now.
And what Jim is doing is he's checking to see if there's any fetchable blue sources still in Kevin's deck. Can that polluted Delta do anything?
So, are there?
I don't know exactly what's in exile. He has one of his basic islands on the battlefield. There's 2 copies of Island in the deck.
Sure, we can't. You're right, and there's thoughts. Okay, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Remember, deck lists aren't public, but yeah, with these guys, they are.
Yeah.
Just says go, does not go for Kolaghan's Command. But that means Jim is basically saying that the Kolaghan's Command is never going to be cast, right?
Never going to resolve.
Yeah, that's... Tassiger, 2 more cards for Kevin. It's another Tassiger. He'll get that one back.
That was unfortunate. If he had some cards he really didn't want to hit with Tassiger in his graveyard, he could use the second one to just delve them away. That's not the situation that he's in.
He'll just end up flipping more bad cards. It's kind of part of it's what you sign up for, right?
Yeah.
So now Jim will Tassiger, terminate into the yard. So we see 3 bolts of Kolaghan's Command to terminate and 4 Snapcasters. And despite the fact that Jim's graveyard is huge, Kevin actually gives him better cards. Kevin gives him, there was another red card, a Young Pyromancer. But that's actually a very good card. I'm not sure I'm Kevin, I'm not happy that Jim just got that.
No, that's really huge.
Plays the Pyromancer and then Serum Visions, draws, scries 2. Delver of Secrets. Okay, you were talking about this in post-board games.
Yeah, Jim does still have them in.
Does Kevin know that, though? You see, Jim's scrying a bolt to the bottom. That's interesting whether Kevin knows that Jim has done this.
Yes.
If we go to a 3rd game, if Jim can force that, that's some very serious information that he would not want to let out.
Mm-hmm. And we still haven't determined how many lightning bolts are in Kevin Jones' deck. And if Jim is just full on Delvers and Kevin is light on bolts, that does end up favoring Jim.
On end step there, Kevin, choosing between Tassiger and Desolate Lighthouse, goes for Lighthouse that time. Looting away a polluted Delta.
Yeah, had some junk in his hand. He gets better selection over it.
If you have a really bad card in your hand, Lighthouse probably better than Tassiger.
Yeah. When your graveyard is this good, you kind of want to prioritize activating Tassiger highly, though you could definitely mill over something bad and just get that in your hand. And with Jim presenting that Young Pyromancer and really turning up his clock here, Kevin needs more guaranteed value, and that's the large incentive for the Lighthouse.
Lightning Bolt looks like it may have just been added to Kevin's hand. Ooh, we are close.
Mm-hmm.
We are. Lightning Bolt, Dispel, and an activated Desolate Lighthouse. Kevin Jones is real close. See this part, the drawing burn spells and dispels. I understand that one. I'm down.
So Kevin, with the Electrolyze that he cast, he ended up just kind of using it on some tokens in a combat where he didn't make an attack.
All right.
If he just still had that in his hand, he would have a lethal combination of spells.
Right, that's what I was saying. All my burn spells go upstairs. Right.
Well, your argument was about just going upstairs right now.
Okay.
I think if you just had it in his
wanted to be more
hand still,
patient.
yeah.
Yeah, but what if the card on top of the deck was the other burn spell? See, that's why I got to draw it
Then
right now.
he'd be a genius.
Jim continues to delve. He's going to make Gurmag Angler. That's going to clean up his graveyard for that Tasigur. You see Jim just leaving all the lightning bolts in the graveyard.
Yep. Terminate's also great here because you get rid of Kevin's Tasigur, suddenly all of his blocks are terrible.
Yeah, there's this patience game with the Electrolyze, which you're talking about, though, where, yes, it would be nice for Kevin to have the flexibility of where to put those 2 damage. Mm-hmm. But by holding on to it, he's denying himself a card draw, which might matter depending on how tight things are.
I have to go back and check the mana availability. If he did that over activating Tasigur with his mana, he just gets card advantage somewhere else.
We have a Tasigur activation from Kevin Jones. Mills 2, Serum Visions gets put in his hand.
Yeah, definitely give him the Serum Visions. Frequently you give your opponent Serum Visions just in general. Right now, it's definitely the worst card in Kevin's graveyard because it's a combination of stuff that deals damage equal to half a Jim's life total.
Yeah, that's a second lightning bolt. And you see with Kevin's hand now, he prescribes both to the bottom, and that's fortunate for Jim Davis. There's a real chance that Kevin would Lighthouse to draw another spell that kills Jim. It looks like he's going for a kill here. He's going to Gitaxian Probe Jim and then draws. He just needs another burn spell of any kind. He's got a bolt in hand and a spell to back all this up.
And on the following turn, Jim starts having pretty good attacks with the Gurmangler plus the Tasigur.
Kevin probes into Thought Scour. Okay. Thought Scour.
This is a target Jim kind of situation.
Make
because
Jim's yard worse.
You can put worse cards in. You also don't want to mill over your outs.
Yeah, he is targeting Jim. Jim's going to activate Tasigur in response.
Good call.
Serum Visions and Thought Scour into the yard.
Whammy.
All right, so he's going to get some cantrip, huh?
Probably Thought Scour, seeing as Jim is tapped out and it's a less impactful spell.
Yep, and that's what it'll do now. Mills Jim for 2, hitting a young Pyromancer. Kevin draws. Can he draw a burn spell? It looks like it might be red. It's Terminate.
Like Terminate's okay. It's
not a
way
burn spell.
worse now that Jim has both Delve creatures.
Yeah. So he doesn't have the lethal yet. Kevin just trying so hard. Here's Terminate on young Pyromancer. Ugh. He's just 1 point away. Jim just crack a fetch land. You gotta he even sees the Scalding Tarn in Jim's hand. just do it. Jim draws Lightning Bolt. Uh-oh. You're gonna have to do some math here.
He has Lightning Bolt plus Kolaghan's Command. He knows that Kevin has Dispel, though.
Okay, knows about the Dispel. So
you can't just team up on Tasigur.
Jim's got Painful Truths. That one's just out.
Though, I would not cast that with any colored mana.
Well, it's got Thought Scour. Go for that. It's so close here. And at this point, board control favors Jim, but life totals, oh man, those 3 points.
Kevin is closer to outright winning the game on the stack, though that can change. If Kevin can't produce that kill in a turn or two, Jim's board position is advantaged.
Yeah. Here's a Thought Scour from Jim Davis. He'll target Kevin. Mills a Spell Snare and a Serum Visions. Draws a Spell Snare. Spell Snare doesn't actually counter any of the burn, does it?
Just Collective Brutality.
Okay.
I don't know how many Snapcaster Mage are left in Kevin's deck, but obviously it turns off that as an out.
Jim is going to swing with the Delve creatures. And for Kevin, it looks like he's blocking them all. It's a double block on Gurmag Angler and a single block on Tasigur. Looking to trade and chump. Jim, oh, he's going to get greedy here. He's going to Lightning Bolt the Snapcaster Mage. We'll see if that's enough to get the Dispel from Kevin.
And if it's not, then he can just cast Kolaghan's Command. And then just completely wins in combat on this turn.
It's interesting. Kevin might let all this happen, and then if he loot Desolate Lighthouses into the burn spell, he doesn't care. But that gives him like 1 turn to do it.
Yeah, especially with combat looking like it's going to go sour, Kevin just needs to prioritize winning the game with some burn spells.
And that's what Kevin did here. He lets the Lightning Bolt resolve. Looks like Kevin is just giving up on winning the board. He's just going to try to burn Jim out.
Yep.
And he's going to be dead, 1 turn.
No need to activate Tasigur. Jim's just going to give you a bad card. Let's see what the Lighthouse finds.
Can we get that other burn spell? He's got 3 points of burn. Jim's at 4. He has a counter spell to back it up. If he can find a burn spell, it will be the game. He draws. Don't get to catch it just yet. Discard Scalding Tarn. He is so close.
Big draw step for Jones here.
So, yeah, just that 1 point. Oh. Checks through his graveyard. How many bolts did he keep in? So many of these games seem to come down to lightning bolts, but the card is it's like so questionable in the matchup and so essential at the same time. You know, it doesn't kill anything, but it's like having Lava Spike in your control mirror.
It does matter more, given that they're both young Pyromancer builds.
Okay. We see Kolaghan's Command upkeep from Jim Davis.
Not going to happen.
No. Here's Dispel. Kevin draws. Can he get a burn spell? It's Gurmag Angler. No. He's got one Desolate Lighthouse, and that might be it. Unless Collective Brutality, but yeah, Gurmag Angler's the play.
Angler as a blocker looks to keep him alive for a turn. He can trade Anglers and then take 4, 5, 6 off of Tassiger plus 2
Is
tokens.
it possible he wants to use Desolate Lighthouse first here to see if he can just draw the win? If he's just committed to... If that's going to happen, should he be leading on it?
It's fine to cast the Angler first, but he probably should Lighthouse main phase.
Okay, I guess so. It doesn't really...
I
I was thinking like if you Lighthouse into Chaining Serum Visions or something crazy like that. It looks like
Sure.
he's going to go the defensive route, and he has multiple of the Black Delve creatures. Tassiger will join Gurmag Angler.
Okay, this looks a lot better for Kevin then, given that he had both of those.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah, now Jim's attacks actually look kind of bad.
Can Kevin steal the board from Jim? He threw away the board last turn, and now he's just 180s and says, "Just kidding. I actually do want to compete on the board." And you see what he's delved his graveyard down to: Dispel, Snapcaster, Lightning Bolt. This Tassiger activation is really powerful once again.
Kevin has already cast and exiled his Murderous Cut, so it's going to be tough to get through these Delve creatures outside of combat.
Yeah, but look at Jim's hand: Painful Truths, Spell Snare, Delver, Land. It's possible that Kevin just has the better board again, right? He has the Lighthouse, he has the Tassiger. Jim drew a Delver of Secrets. That's not helping. I guess if it flips, it does.
Well, Kevin would need to kill that in pretty short order if it flipped.
Do we have time for it to flip? I don't know. Still really close. Both players having the same Delve creatures now, making attacking difficult. Jim's got to decide if he's going to attack at all. If he's not going to, he's looking to time that Delver of Secrets. If he's going to attack, he should play it after attacking. If it's going to be a blocker, if he's hoping to flip it and swing in the air next turn, then he'll just play it and say go.
Kevin would be pretty happy to pick up his PN Kieran Nalar.
Well, yeah, that would win. Here's Delver of Secrets from Jim. Kevin. Is it Lighthouse or is it Tassiger? It is Lighthouse. Draws. It looks to be red. It looks like another Lightning Bolt.
All right, just got to untap and go for it.
Lightning Bolt. 2 bolts in hand. He does not have the Dispel anymore. You see, he could have tried for it end step, but no, sir. He's going to draw a card.
With that Delver on the battlefield, going for double bolt if you get countered, it would be pretty bad news.
Yeah. And here, so we'll see what he wants to go for. Young Pyromancer. Okay.
That makes the bolt line a lot stronger, because even if one resolves, you start getting more tokens. It becomes rather trivial to deal 1 damage.
Jim will Spell Snare. And now Jim's hand is just 2 cards, and Kevin knows one of them is Painful Truths. And actually, he knows the other one's Scalding Tarn if he's written them down. He should have perfect info here. This should be a green light.
Yeah, checking to see if he's missing anything right now.
Yeah, he has seen Jim's hand off a probe a long time ago. Says go. Can let the Delver trigger resolve. It's going to be Spell Snare.
That one doesn't matter.
Draw for Jim. Is it going to be a draw? Kevin's got him if he was willing to pull the trigger. He found the second burn spell. 1 Lightning Bolt at Jim. It's going to put him to 1. Jim's got to try to sell it. He's got to try to sell that he has it. Kevin's going to go for the win. Shows his hand and says, is this good? Am I going to get it? And Jim says, yeah, you got it. So 2-0, it is Kevin Jones defeating team captain Jim Davis in the Grixis Delver Mirror. He's going to win this one to start off Modern.
Yeah, and the mirror there, Kevin's at home in this matchup. I have to imagine, Kevin both sideboarded out his Delvers. He had that Desolate Lighthouse. He had a couple extra tools for tackling the matchup and just kind of had a better strategy